Hi everyone, this is Devshri, and today in this video we will be discussing about psychology optional paper 2 syllabus. I want all of you to know that there are 14 units in paper 2 as well as we have 14 units in paper 1. I have uploaded a video on psychology optional paper 1 syllabus discussion as well, where I have not just discussed the syllabus with you, but I have also discussed the important topics which are mainly repeated in the examination. Same agenda is for this video. I will be telling you about the complete syllabus of paper 2. I will also be making you aware about the important topics from paper 2, also the most repeated topics from paper 2. Before we continue with this discussion, I request you all to join this Telegram channel in order to ensure that you get regular updates on upcoming special classes and plus courses. Moving on to the syllabus part, we have a total of 14 units. Out of this, few units are the ones wherein you will be getting to learn some very new concepts. For example, you will be still learning the application of psychology in the world of organization. We refer to this as organizational psychology. You will be getting 3 to 4 questions from this unit alone. If we look at other such units, you have abnormal psychology, which is basically labeled as mental health and illness in your syllabus. We also have therapeutic approaches wherein we learn about different counseling and your therapies. These are three typical units wherein you will have to learn about different techniques, modalities, mainly in these two. But organizational psychology also comes with its own sets of new topics, and apart from that, it is going to be psychological testing for you, wherein you will be learning very new concepts of test construction. Psychological testing we anyway complete in our psychometrics and research methodology course, so there is nothing to worry about that. We will be discussing that a little later in detail. For now, what I want you all to understand that apart from these four, whatever number of units are left, these units are very easy, highly applicative, and mostly repeated. You will be easily getting 1 to 2 questions, and many a times even more questions from certain units. I'm sure all of you are aware about this trend by UPSC, that once in a while they will give over emphasis on a given unit just in order to break the trend. And when this happens, usually you will see one of the units which was receiving lesser number of questions will all of a sudden receive more questions. So this is not too unpredictable to work upon. You can easily understand these things. I've already made a lot of analysis videos. You can check out those videos as well to understand more about the psychology optional mains trend. Now, coming to these applicative portions, let me talk about the syllabus one by one and show you the subtopics as well. And side by side, I'll keep telling you which one are the important topics. The first unit you are looking here is psychological measurement of individual differences. This is what is commonly known as psychological testing, and I refer to this as psychometrics because we study the process of constructing tests here, and we also study how we can administer, design, basically everything related to test comes under the category of psychometrics. Now, when you talk about psychometrics, you need to study the nature of individual differences. First of all, you have to see that what individual differences are and how exactly these individual differences are playing an important role. How exactly psychological testing is useful in studying these individual differences. Is it really important, worth it or not? This is the main question. Characteristics and construction of standardized psychological test. This is something which takes a lot of time to cover because this is like the whole of your psychological testing. You have to study various characteristics, efficacy of test. You need to understand which pointers or which factors are important in establishing a good test, and how exactly do you construct a test, how do you standardize a test. All of these things are very important, but we do not get a lot of questions on this. It's not like that every year you are getting a question from test construction or standardization purely. No, it is not on the process of construction completely, but the parts of construction will be asked to you. It has happened once wherein they have asked you to summarize the whole process of constructing a test from step A to the step Z, including the efficacy, right? Which factors elaborate on the efficacy of a test. So that was like a holistic question. And apart from that, you get simple questions like talk about the reliability of it, validity of it, or maybe about both the concepts and the interconnection between them. How do you standardize, good norms, etc. So all of that falls under this particular category. Thus this becomes the most important one. You also have a category of types of psychological tests. This is very easy category. You do get questions from this one, so it is good to study this. It is also important, I'll say, every year one question, or you can say at least on average in every 2 years you are getting 1 to 1.5 questions from this particular unit. This particular subtopic, types of psychological tests. So you can say कभी कभी तो frequently आ जाता है हर साल में, कभी कभी एक आधा बड़ी गैप आ जाता है. Uses, misuses, limitations plus ethical issues, both are very small topics or categories. Both have been asked in the examination earlier. I'll not say that these are extremely important. I'll just simply tell you that these are extremely basic and all of you can easily do this. You have to, because questions अगर एक बार आए हैं तो दोबारा आने के chances भी रहेंगे, and you should be very much prepared with this particular one. Moving on to psychological well-being and mental disorders, which is your concept of psychological health and ill health. You need to study the concept of health. What exactly is ill health? Health is more on the positive lines. Ill health is wherein your mental condition is deteriorating, you are having any kind of mental illness or any specific mental disorder. You will have to study about what positive health means and how exactly can we maintain the well-being. You need to study the concepts like happiness disposition, which factors are influencing your positive health, your well-being, your lifestyle and quality of life. This becomes important, extremely important. You can say very direct questions not always necessarily are not going to come from this part, but yes, you will see that the subtopic will be applied in certain ways, that one or the other question in the overall paper will be matching to the factors influencing or your quality of life, how you can enhance it, what factors are contributing in facilitating a good quality of life, what are the hindering factors. So such questions can definitely be asked. This is the major theme, main theme for psychology. And you can see that even before COVID, there were a lot of issues with mental health, especially if you look at the condition of mental health of our youth, it is deteriorating. And because of the COVID times, it kind of impacted everybody's mental health. And now it's not that only youth is impacted, even every age group, if you look at, people are severely impacted by that. And the similar thing is continuing now. The issues are increasing. We are facing cognitive issues, which are again going to lead to your mental issues or mental disorders. Anyway, so you need to focus on what mental health is. These are the questions which are repeated very frequently in paper 1 or paper 2. कहीं ना कहीं ज़रूर पूछ लेते हैं. When you talk about disorders specifically, you need to know the causal factors and you also need to know the characteristics of these disorders. Treatment usually is asked by merging your unit 2, which is psychological well-being, and your unit 3, that is therapeutic approaches. So the disorders you have to learn are anxiety disorder, mood disorders, schizophrenia, delusional disorders, personality disorders, and substance abuse disorders. All of these are easy. All of these are important. Remember this particular point one, that we are not studying complete clinical psychology here. We're not doing MPhil, we're not doing PhD here. We are not asked all the disorders which exist. We are asked very limited disorders. मैक्सिमम आपको एक साल में 1 से 2, हद से हद 3 आ जाएंगे अगर कंपैरिजन डाल के पूछ लिया. इतने ही डिसऑर्डर्स पूछे जा सकते हैं. दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू आस्क यू मोर देन दिस. दीज आर ऑल ईजियर वंस. यू कैन study this easily, you can learn this easily. You just have to be little more tactful in your approaches. आराम से कर सकते हैं. questions आएंगे ही आएंगे. this is an important part. ये दोनों जो है वो बहुत ही important है. बाकी ऑफ कोर्स छोटे मोटे क्वेश्चन साइड से कनेक्ट किए जा सकते हैं। डिसऑर्डर्स का जो ट्रीटमेंट है वो इस यूनिट से निकल कर आता है, फ्रॉम साइकोडायनामिक थेरेपी, बिहेवियरल थेरेपी, क्लाइंट सेंटर थेरेपी, कॉग्निटिव थेरेपी, इंडिजिनस थेरेपीज लाइक योगा एंड मेडिटेशन, biofeedback, prevention and rehabilitation of the mentally ill. Again, you can see this is something which relates to the previous unit, and how we can foster good mental health among people. Again, something which correlates with the previous unit. These are also the portions which correlate very well to your rehabilitation psychology. Once I move to that unit, I'll show it to you. It is very much similar, because we do have mentally ill group in rehabilitation psychology portions as well. So most of it is repeated again in nature. Now these therapies are important. You have to study these therapies well. Let's say you have covered this, you can be asked a question. Let's see, for XYZ disorder, anxiety disorder, mood disorder, which particular therapeutic modality will work extremely well? So you have to talk about which one will work well. So it can be your behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy, usually CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy is what we use. So CBT is the umbrella of different cognitive and behavioral therapies, which are found to be extremely effective in modification of behavior, and your cognitive distortions can be improved through that. So ऐसे ही इस तरीके से आपको कोई भी डिसऑर्डर दे देंगे और पूछेंगे कि कौन सी थेरेपी काम करेगी, या फिर आपको क्वेश्चन दिया जाएगा दैट XYZ थेरेपी, let's say your behavioral therapy or your client centered therapy is effective in dealing with what particular kind of disorders, how effective it is as a prevention, or you can say as an interventive modality. So these are the major set of questions. The most repeated therapies which have been asked to you are mostly on the lines of psychodynamic, one second, psychodynamic, or your behavioral, and the most important one is your cognitive behavioral therapy, not mentioned in your syllabus directly, but you will be considering it under this particular point. So CBT is the one wherein cognitive and behavioral both are asked. Now once in a while, in many years, they will definitely ask you about indigenous ones or the other categories of therapies, but the most repeated and important ones are these. Now CCT, client centered therapy, has such principles or basics which are applied to the domain of counseling and therapy directly. So you do not have any option but to study this well, which means that directly or indirectly you are going to use client centered therapy principles as well. तो ये तो चार categories करनी ही करनी है. You do not have any option. Rest is, it depends on the year you are writing the exam, or maybe you can say on your luck that whether you are going to get these indigenous therapies or biofeedback therapy or not. But these four become the most important therapies. Let's move on to next unit, which is our work psychology and organizational behavior, or you can simply refer to it as your organizational psychology. Here the syllabus is quite vast. You have to cover a lot of portions, but these are all interesting and easy ones, and you do get a lot of questions from this unit. On average, you can say 3 to 4 questions easily you will be getting every year. Yes, if they have to change the trends, definitely it can go up and down, but 3 to 4 you can expect. So personal selection and training is one topic. You are asked questions from this side. Now the thing is that the questions are usually merged with psychological testing, because you have a subtopic there wherein you are talking about the types of psychological tests. Under that you can talk about tests which are used in organizations for selection. You can talk about different set of tests like we use for personality, intelligence, creativity, aptitude, attitude and what not. तो कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. सेम यहीं पे भी पूछा जाता है, ट्रेनिंग के लिए भी पूछा जा सकता है. Not extremely important, but once in a while questions have been asked. Use of psychological tests in the industry can be merged together. Again, for both, once in a while they will ask you, but not extremely important कि बहुत ज़्यादा questions आते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है. Training in human resource development, it is good to know. Once in a while again they can ask you questions. Theories of work motivation, extremely important. They have been asking a lot of questions in the past. Recently, they are trying to manipulate the trend a bit, but I'm pretty sure they're going to come back to that work motivation type of questions again, wherein either you will be asked these direct questions or you will be asked comparison between these particular theories. So you better be prepared either to talk about the comparison or the applications, or specifically talking about such theories in the Indian context is a major theme of theories of work motivation. Moving on to leadership and participatory management types of leadership. Here we have transformational leadership, managerial effectiveness. Just combine all of these topics together, including power in politics and organizations. Clubbing it becomes important. These are all very small, chotu motu concepts from where they can ask you a single question. You don't have to expect a lot more than that, because they are not going to ask you usually, right? It is more on the lines of how you can keep your employees engaged, provide them a better environment to function. How exactly can we ensure that we are able to take care of the diversity, managing diversity in the organization? This is the main idea where UPSC has been asking a lot of questions. So it's better you prepare all these small topics well. You do not have to do, make very detailed or lengthy notes on these things, because it's not worth it. Rather, just focus on making notes onto very important topics, the ones where you have seen at least two questions in the past few years on same topic. If you have seen, then you should work on that. Also, your notes should be specific to the point and should be full of important and relevant facts, rather than just trying to dumping a lot of information just because it is easily available. That is something you should try to avoid. Stick to the important points, stick to the most relevant points which are going to fetch your marks. We do not need everything under the umbrella existing, in order to write our notes or write our answers. We only need good, relevant, important keywords, key points for our answers. That is what helps us score good marks. So focus on that aspect. Ergonomics, important. Consumer psychology. Technically, this concept is important, but I was very surprised that in the last many years they were not asking a lot of questions on consumer psychology, ergonomics, not ergonomics actually, advertising and marketing, right? But I've always been teaching this part. I was sure that one day they will definitely ask it, and that happened recently. They have asked you now questions on consumer psychology, on advertising and marketing, which brings this particular topic into light, and I am pretty much hopeful that this particular topic is going to be repeated in the coming years very soon. So you should be prepared about different psychological techniques or strategies which are used in advertising and marketing. You should be aware about consumer psychology and how marketing, consumer psych, all of these are related to ergonomics. Ergonomics as a topic is not just part of OB, it is also part of your military psychology, right? Where we discuss that how exactly man machine system interacts. You also study about the similar aspect in IT and mass media. So it's better to cover this portion well, because it's not only about this particular unit, it is about the topic as such. It can be asked to you at different places and it can have high utility there. Stress and its management, a general topic. Good to know, it can be asked even without having this topic in our syllabus. पेपर वन में भी पूछा जाता है, पेपर टू में भी पूछा जाता है, because stress is one of the major issues which people are experiencing these days, and it is very important for us to ensure that we cover stress, and we are also able to ensure that we are aware of a lot of stress or coping mechanisms or techniques. So this is, yes, slightly important, but it's a very general and basic topic. We can all talk about that. Next is your sensitivity training. Different types of training can be asked. This is important. But again, there are so many topics from this unit. You will not be getting all these topics in one given year. um, let's say you are not able to um, you know qualify in your first attempt, and you're taking more time or you're taking some gap. in that situation it becomes important that you are aware of all the topics and you practice it well. Otherwise you can look at the previous year questions, and kind of predict that what kind of questions can be asked in the next year, which I usually do for all of you in the mains analysis videos, and maybe you can just check that video out. Talking about the next unit, application of psychology to educational field, a very interesting one. Herein you are applying what psychology is all about and how we are using it in terms of making our education system better, providing what children or what learners need more specifically. So various psychological principles underlying effective teaching learning process, learning styles of learners, gifted, retarded, learning, disabled, and their training. How exactly can we train them? How can you train or improve the memory and improve the academic achievement of learners? How can we focus on their personality development and value education, educational vocational guidance, career counseling, use of psychological tests in educational institutions, and effective strategies and guidance programs. Now, what is very important for you to understand that as such everything is interconnected. You cannot keep aside the underlying effective teaching learning processes and learning styles and the training part from strategies. Strategies are going to be focused on these things because we want to improve these things. Everything is interconnected, but still, the most frequently asked questions are going to be on the lines of effective strategies and guidance program, and your counseling, vocational counseling, personality development, and these 2 to 3 topics are also important. Alternate you can expect question on one or the other. Here you are also seeing a trend of applicative questions a bit, wherein you are not asked a question which is directly coming from your static portions or book, that what exactly is X learning style, Y learning style, right? Who are gifted, who are retarded? No, you are not asked such questions. Rather, you are asked questions that how exactly they are finding it difficult to adjust in a regular classroom, and how exactly can you resolve that problem? How can you make our classrooms more inclusive? How exactly can you bring in maintain or enhance the teacher learner relationship, different programs in order to promote education, and all these kind of real world kind of questions have been asked. And very much certain that the similar nature of questions and more questions on the lines of NEP will be asked to you all. So be prepared on that front. Here in this unit you will see tons of current affairs can be applied. The only thing is that you cannot use all those in your answer, one answer or two answer, but it's good you should have some good concrete data with you. And as and when you are writing your answers, try to enrich your answers with some sort of current affairs. You can again follow me for the current affairs for psychology part as well. Next comes your community psychology. Here in the community psychology applicative unit, very interesting how exactly social change works, and what you should be doing in terms of using psychological principles if you are interested in bringing out this social change. So what exactly is the concept of community psychologist? Community, what exactly is community psychology, and the role of community psychologist is something which can be asked to you. Apart from that, you will be asked use of small groups in social action. You will be asked about arousing community consciousness and action for handling social problems, group decision making and leadership for social change, effective strategies for social change. For this particular unit, I will say that look at this as one topic instead of looking at it in terms of subtopics, because for this one you cannot say कि they are going to ask me small groups or they're going to ask me community consciousness. The point is, even if they ask you effective strategies for social change, you have to talk about all of this. They ask you how exactly a leader is bringing in social change, you still have to talk about all of these. It's like all the points which are given here in the syllabus are interconnected. So my suggestion is that prepare this as a holistic topic itself, not like different subtopics have to be given importance. सब कुछ ही important है, सब कुछ अच्छे से पढ़ो, कोई भी क्वेश्चन आएगा बाकी टॉपिक्स के साथ में कनेक्ट होगा ही होगा. ये बहुत ही बेसिक एक छोटी सी यूनिट है, एंड इसके अंदर भी रियल वर्ल्ड एग्जाम्पल्स या करेंट अफेयर्स काफ़ी ब्यूटीफुली इंटीग्रेट किए जा सकते हैं. रिहेबिलिटेशन साइकोलॉजी में आपको सबसे पहले चीज़ जो जाननी चाहिए वो है प्राइमरी, सेकेंडरी एंड टर्शरी प्रिवेंशन प्रोग्राम्स एंड साइकोलॉजिस्ट का यहाँ पे क्या रोल रहता है. Basic concept, not extremely important, but indirectly you will be using it in your answers, so you better be prepared with this topic. Next topic here is organizing of services for rehabilitation of physically ill, mentally ill. So not completely just physically ill, basically physically challenged as well. Mentally ill, socially challenged people, for example, including people like old person or geriatric population, rehabilitation of persons suffering from substance abuse, juvenile delinquency, and criminal behavior. Now, if you look at the previous year questions in the trend, you will see they have asked you questions on old age, they have asked you a question on mentally ill, in socially challenged, old age भी पूछा है, सब्सटेंस अब्यूज़ भी पूछा है, जुवेनाइल डेलिंक्वेंस भी पूछा है, क्रिमिनल बिहेवियर भी पूछा है, आपको उन्होंने HIV एड्स भी पूछा है, कोरोनरी हार्ट डिजीज़ भी पूछा है, विक्टिम्स ऑफ वायलेंस भी पूछा है, रोल ऑफ सोशल एजेंसीज भी पूछा है. अब अगर सिर्फ प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस के बेसिस पर जाओगे तो फिर तो सब कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट है. In reality, how it is going to be that when you study about rehabilitation, you need to understand the process of rehabilitation. Once you know the process of rehabilitation, once you know the importance of rehabilitation, it just doesn't matter which group they are asking you. You just have to think like, an officer. Even a common person can think and tell you that if these are the processes or these are the importance of rehabilitation, this is where it is helping the person adjust. तो मेरे को क्रिमिनल्स के लिए या सब्सटेंस अब्यूज़ के लिए या विक्टिम्स ऑफ वायलेंस के लिए कौन से ऐसे मेथड्स या स्ट्रैटेजीज यूज़ करनी चाहिए जिसको यूज़ करते हुए आई कैन हेल्प दिस पीपल come back in mainstream and lead a normal life, right? So this is what you have to do. Again, I'll say look at this as a whole unit. If your concept, which is extremely important, is clear, then you are sorted with this unit. Here's one tip: when you are working on the role of social agencies, try to make a list of different NGOs which are working on, right, all of these concepts. At least for every issue, every rehabilitative group we are referring to, you should be having 2 to 3, maximum 4 5 NGOs, or good social initiatives which are running in the society, specifically talking about our Indian society. Next comes your application of psychology to disadvantaged groups. This is very important unit. Herein the concept of disadvantage and deprivation is important. This concept of relative and prolonged, mainly absolute deprivation, is very important. You can be asked difference between these topics, so study this one well. Social, physical, cultural, economic and psychological consequences of being part of a disadvantaged or deprived group is important. Educating and motivating is a very relevant topic for these days. In the past, majority of questions have been asked on these categories, but in the future time you will see these questions are going to be either a mix of educating, talking about problems, consequences, and then educating, or directly about educating and motivating. This is definitely going to happen in the coming years, so you better be prepared on those lines. Psychological problems of social integration, again an important unit, connects a lot with the sociological perspectives too. Knowing what social integration is important, problem of important in the sense you have to do it, not important for the exam. As such, यहाँ से कुछ question नहीं निकलता है. The problem of caste, class, religion, and language conflicts and prejudice. I'll say mainly prejudice is the most important part. Nature and manifestation of prejudice between the in-group and the out-group becomes important. Here you have to be ready with your good answers, because यहाँ questions पूछे जा सकते हैं. Causal factors of social conflicts and prejudice, important. Different psychological strategies, important. Measures to achieve social integration, similar in nature, not very different than the other one. ये सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट है. कास्ट, क्लास, रिलीजन, लैंग्वेज कन्फ्लिक्ट्स अपने आप में कॉमन पॉइंट्स हैं. आपको ज़रूरी नहीं है इन पे डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन पूछें. अगर पूछते भी हैं तो भी आपके जो आंसर्स हैं वो इन्हीं लाइंस पे रहते हैं. सी यू कैन नॉट टॉक टू एक्सप्लिसिटली और टू मच अबाउट दी major conflicts which are existing. What you have to do is you have to take a stand, an academic stand, you can say a realistic stand as well, there's no issue in that, right? But something wherein you are not taking side of any of the groups, you are neutral and you are applying the psychological principles. Do remember, this is not supposed to be like your GS answer, this is supposed to be reflecting psychological understanding of yours. So please ensure that you stick to the relevant and important points here. नेक्स्ट इज़ योर IT एंड मास मीडिया. यहाँ पर सबसे जो इम्पॉर्टेंट है एप्लीकेशंस में डिस्टेंस लर्निंग थ्रू IT एंड मास मीडिया है. इसको एजुकेशनल साइकोलॉजी के साथ कनेक्ट करके आप देख सकते हो, काफ़ी क्वेश्चंस पूछे जा सकते हैं. द प्रेजेंट सिनेरियो ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी इन द मास मीडिया बूम एंड द रोल ऑफ साइकोलॉजिस्ट इज समथिंग which have been asked earlier in the initial years, but now it is kind of coming down. Rather, you can see computer applications in AI के चलते पेपर 1 में वो question आ जाता है, so it is not always repeated here in paper 2. Selection and training of psychology professionals in the field of IT and mass media, not a lot of questions on this, not an important topic, not that important as a topic. रैंडमली कभी एक आध बार डालना हुआ तो डाल सकते हैं, पर उतना ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट नहीं है जितना अपना डिस्टेंस लर्निंग वाला हो जाएगा, जितना हमारा इम्पैक्ट ऑफ टीवी एंड फॉस्टरिंग वैल्यू थ्रू आईटी एंड मास मीडिया हो जाएगा, जितना साइकोलॉजिकल कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज ऑफ रीसेंट डेवलपमेंट्स इन आईटी हो जाएगा. सबसे ज़्यादा क्वेश्चंस यहाँ से निकल कर आते हैं. Entrepreneurship through e-commerce, multi-level marketing, not a lot of questions are being asked. So these are the most important ones. Rest we will still be looking at PYQs and try to cover something which is repeated more than twice. Psychology and economic development, achievement, motivation, economic development. What is the relationship between these mainly? This is important. Characteristics, very important. This is the most repeated question here. Motivating and training people, or directly talking about how achievement, motivation, training can be given, can be asked. Maximum questions from these 3 topics. I think recently just once they have asked you about consumer rights, but majority of the times only these 3 topics have been asked, so you better be prepared with the initial 3. Applications of psychology to environment and related fields. Here the most important topics which are asked are motivating people for small family norms, population psychology, the consequences of population explosion, high population density and crowding. यहाँ पे ये जो चीज़ है वो रिपीट हो जाती है, सो ये आपको पूछा जाता है. इम्पैक्ट ऑफ रैपिड साइंटिफिक एंड टेक्नोलॉजिकल ग्रोथ, नॉट वेरी, आई डोंट वांट टू से कि बहुत ज़्यादा रिपीट होता है, इम्पॉर्टेंट है बट हद से ज़्यादा नहीं है. जैसे इन टॉपिक से हर साल क्वेश्चन आते हैं, बट इस टॉपिक से ऑल्टरनेट ईयर्स में क्वेश्चन आएगा, सो यू कैन से इट इज़ स्लाइटली इम्पॉर्टेंट, नॉट लाइक वेरी इम्पॉर्टेंट, पर पता होना ज़रूरी है. बिकॉज नो इसको कवर कर लोगे तो तुम्हारा एसेज में भी यूज़ हो जाता है, तुम्हारे जीएस के अंदर भी यूज़ हो जाता है, बिकॉज the advancement of technological growth is actually impacting the environment, and that is the sole reason why it is very important for us. Application of psychology in other fields. Here we have military psychology, sports psychology, pro and anti-social behavior, and psychology of terrorism. All are interesting, all are very interesting, but mostly questions are asked from military, sports and your media influences. In the last I think 6, 7 or maybe more years, they have not asked you any direct question on psychology of terrorism, but you have been asked a lot of questions on military, sports or media influences. Many a times you are given 2 questions from 2 of these subtopics, and one is changed with the alternate topic the next year. This is how the usual trend is like. I do cover all of these in the most applied, comprehensive manner, discussing with you all the examples in Indian context, making you connect, relate, and form your own examples with answer writing practice. Everything is covered, including current affairs. So if you want to cover paper 2 holistically, you want to understand what is important and how to write effective applied answers on these questions, on these topics, then subscribe to Unacademy using code Devshri Singh to avail maximum discounts. And in case you have any query, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to team, and we will be happy to onboard you. But this is extremely important that you cover paper 2 really well, nahi to you will be losing out on marks. See, when students are not able to do it really well, then also they are able to score really really good marks in paper 2. Imagine the fact that अगर इसको एक बार अच्छे से रिवाइज कर लिया तो आप लोग कितने ज़्यादा मार्क्स स्कोर कर पाओगे। अगर आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन अच्छी है, आपके कॉन्सेप्ट्स एंड इंटरकनेक्शंस अच्छे हैं, for sure you are going to score really really good marks here. So ensure that you are focusing on that front. Next and the last unit here is your psychology of gender, जिसमें issues of discrimination अपने आप में important है, पेपर 1 के gender roles के साथ में काफ़ी कनेक्ट करता है। एंड जो सोशलाइजेशन के प्रोसेस में डिस्क्रिमिनेशन शुरू होती है, वहाँ पे इसको हम काफ़ी कनेक्ट करते हैं। मैनेजमेंट ऑफ डाइवर्सिटी इज समथिंग विच कैन बी कनेक्टेड विद ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल साइड, ग्लास सीलिंग इफेक्ट, सेल्फ फुलफिलिंग प्रोफेसी, वुमेन इन इंडियन सोसाइटी आर द important ones. So like community psychology, I want you to see this as an integrated part, right? No subtopic is of you cannot differentiate ki which one is very important. Glass ceiling effect and self fulfilling prophecy are mostly merged, and then you are asked the question. Women in Indian society is something which you cannot talk separately about, because it's all about women and the kind of adversities or the difficulties women have been facing. You can talk about the third gender as well, you can also talk about the issues which men are experiencing. All of that is possible, it is just dependent on the nature of question. So you cannot choose to talk too much about any of that. You have to see and understand what exactly the question is asking, how much scope do you have to elaborate on talking about such things. If you see the possibility, go ahead, talk about it, present it well. Look at this unit as an integrated part, right? Think of all of this as one topic, which is psychology of gender. Everything under the umbrella of psychology of gender is important. It shouldn't look very difficult to you, because this is something which is going to be helping you in psychology. This is something which will be helping you in essay paper. This will be helping you in GS paper 1 as well, because there you have this topic, women in Indian society. So एक ही चैप्टर है जो एक बार पढ़ रहे हो और वो आपको इतनी जगह यूज़ करने को मिल रहा है, that too with psychological principles and perspectives which other students will be missing out on. So it's good that you take advantage of this particular part and ensure that you are able to score high marks. That's all for this video. I hope all of you have understood the most important, most repeated topics from paper 1 and paper 2. I'll see you all in the next video with more such interesting details about psychology optional, which will help you enhance your score. Do ensure that you subscribe with code Devshri Singh. I'll see you all soon in the next video. Thank you.